Медицинская наука в плену у строителей.
That it is like very
fucking average listener doesn't give a shit.
Everybody.
I've gotten to a point, and I hate to say this.
Or on what part?
There's an asterisk to that success. I'm learning every day.
Well, in a sense, like, is this what gets you, what you used to?
Oddly.
Going to subway noises.
I used to, honestly, and I want to get into this, but man, this sort of thing is fun. I don't get to talk about all this kind of stuff often, you know, and not for nothing. I know I've only seen one other, I don't know how many you've done, but I've saw one other interview from you, but like, you ask questions that most interviewers don't. Like, you know, like, if I had $1 for every time I get the what are your influences question, or, you know, those questions, they're cool, and I get why they're asked. And, you know, people who don't know me want to know those things. That's a connection they can make. But the questions you're asking are a lot more, I think, useful for other people like us. Alienate like the nerds, the beat nerds.
I'm trying to steal here again. Like, I'm a Russian. I'm like, okay, let's, you know, I'll be reviewing this, and then like
Актуальный репортаж Натальи Прокофьевой.
It's a Russian thing because I'm half Russian. I don't know if you know that.
No way. How is that? What?
Father's side. My he was born in Brooklyn, but his mother, my great grandparents were born in Russia.
Oh, wow.
Russian connection.
That is so cool. Look at that. Well, this is where we have this rating of beats just for yourself, probably.
Analyzing statistics, man. I love doing that shit with everything. Even when, like, you know, privately you asked me about like the funnel, the numbers. Mm-hmm. Like, what numbers? I can give you numbers. Cool. Like I like that's my world. I live in numbers. Yeah. I was gonna make one other point before we hung it up. This is kind of like on topic but off topic. So there's a book that I've read a million times. Kind of like for lack of a better word, it's kind of like a self-help kind of book, called Art and Fear. But there's a part of it that kind of speaks to the thing we were talking about earlier about like your output, like putting out a lot of things. And the thing that people usually combat that with is say that, well, if you're pushing out all these things in such a short period of time, aren't you worried about the quality? And that's a fair point. Yeah. But in this book, there's this excerpt where they kind of talk about this, and the way they talk about it kind of like speaks to this almost exactly. And it's about this professor who was he was a teacher of a pottery class. And at the first class of every day, he'd split the class in two, like 50% on this side of the room, 50% on the other. He like, you guys are the quantity side. You guys are getting your final grade based off of how much pottery you make this year. At the end of the year, we're going to weigh all of it. And if you have X amount of pounds or whatever, you get an A, what have you. The other side, you guys are going to work all year on one vase or whatever the fuck pottery you're making. And you're going to work on perfecting this one thing for the entire year. And without fail, everyone winds up getting an A, but the highest quality work always came out of the people who did the quantity stuff. Like the stuff that cherished the most, like as art, always came from the people who did it every day and like just pumped out work, because through that big body of work, you're going to get your 10% that are your 5 stars or whatever. So it just kind of tied into that. And like that book, I put a bunch of people onto it, but that book kind of like, it didn't change the way I looked at it, but kind of reinforced the way I looked at things. So it's a book that it's a really short read. I read it literally before I start any new project and right when I finish any new project. It's called Art and Fear. It's based off all the fear, art, and all this other stuff. Really, it's easy. I've put these, I want to say 20, 25 people onto it over the years. Some people, it speaks. Some people, it doesn't. But, it's kind of in the same lane as what's the one with the resistance art, War of Art. But anyway, I just thought I'd drop that little pottery class thing because it kind of ties into a lot of what we're saying.
I don't know whether you have it, because I have like this knowing that the quantity is key and you need to push out. There's at least one thing that I kind of do exactly the opposite and drive myself into the corner. Like I literally, like I know it is wrong and it is not working and I'm frustrated because I'm not doing what I usually do. You know, all the things that I preach, like don't have expectations, lower them, just push it out and work on the thing once it's out there, or do the next, like do iterations. Like, I don't know how I got myself into that space.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think it's uncommon. Like I definitely have those things. That I have an instrumental album that I've been working on for 15 years. Like, I don't even like it anymore. So like I removed all the tracks that were on it and now I'm starting over. It's the same title, the same album. I've started promoting it 15 years ago, like talking about it. It's called Solice and Solitude. Like I had an album cover. I've had 4 different album covers. I don't have 1 second of music for it anymore because I don't like it anymore. But those things happen. They're part of me. Like I always have things like Parada, even like that shit was recorded in 2000, I want to say 13 or 14. It's just coming out in 2021. Like some of the things were recorded in 2020, maybe 2 songs, but the rest of it was 2013. Like, and it didn't come out for a million stupid little reasons that I just it's how it always is. I have my things that I do consistently, and then I have my big bodies of work that I'm like, I can't put that out like that. I need to change the font. Like no one gives a shit with me, you know, and like, you know, it's I get what you're saying with the website thing. And it's really, and I know you don't even need the advice, but it's really easy to say it. Just get it out, and then
it should be.
There are going to be things like that's how software works, right? There's always a version 1, and keep working on it until forever. Oh
yeah.
But like, speaking of like, didn't someone say they were going to do that with music? They were going to make an album, release it, and then keep updating it as they're going to release the version 1.0. I think someone said they were going to do that. They're going to release version 1.0, and like if you have a subscription or whatever, you get the updated versions as it happened or something like that. Thought that was interesting.
That's definitely an interesting concept. That would be so fun to have like a living album that changes. Only the subscribers get to to listen to all the difference. That, you know, you can always buy the latest, but all the subscribers get all the different versions, which is like, yeah, a different album each year. Who introduced that?
I don't remember. I remember someone was talking about it. I thought it happened in the Sidechain discussion, but I don't know. Maybe I feel like it was an artist that said it, but I don't know if they actually did it. Fuck, now this is going to bother me. I got to research this and find out who it is. Or I'm going to steal the idea and just do it myself.
Let's do that. That's like, that would be the Russian thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe like one more thing, if you're okay with that, and then I'll leave you to your to your stuff. Is like, because you were working on hardware previously, and then obviously now you're in Ableton. Like, do you have something that you miss in Ableton that is like, why can't it?
Yeah, I miss having limitations. That's the biggest thing. I miss that more than anything. It's weird because when I was working hardware exclusively, I had all these dreams of things that I could do. And like, oh, it'd be cool if I could just time stretch this to exactly the length I want it. And now I can do all that shit. And I feel kind of stupid saying I wish I couldn't do all that shit. I just found that I was more, it's not the right word, but I think I was more creative because I was forced to be. Just by the limitations. Like at first it started with, I started on pause tape, so that was limiting. So you had to figure it out. And that's how I learned everything. Like I had to figure it out until I got to Ableton and I was like, there were just too many options. I can't just figure this out. I have to watch YouTube videos and learn different things. With that said, I absolutely love Ableton. The other kind of misnomer is that like I say I was on hardware and I've been on hardware for a very long time, but I've sequenced. I was one of the first people I knew that sequenced on a computer. Sampling in the S950 and the SR10, but I had sequenced on I guess it was Vision Pro, Opcode Vision Pro and Master Tracks Pro. This is like early 90s. So I was like one of the first people I know to use a computer just for the MIDI. So that's kind of different because like people come to me with ASR 10 questions because they know I use ASR 10 for 10 years, but I literally used the sequencer for maybe a week and I was like, yeah, go back to the computer. I was basically using like just a sampler and effects processor. But yeah, man, I don't know, man. I love Ableton. I don't think I'd ever want to give that shit up. Like for me right now with the S950, I keep going back and forth. Like part of me wants to just do a whole project just with S950 and I'll mix in Ableton, but like not using the time stretching and clips and all that other shit that Ableton. But then the other part of me is like, well, maybe I should just have the best of both worlds and get the sound of the S950 with the abilities of Ableton. I don't think you can go wrong with that. So I don't know.
I'm interested in how that plays out, like what you'll do with this new patch bay, because I can't mix several machines. Like having, like if I work with iPad, it will be an iPad only thing. If it's an MP, it will be an MP. I'm too lazy to mix them.
I understand that. Like kind of worried that like even after getting this patch bay that I'm still that way, because right now everything is Ableton, and when I was using ASR everything was ASR, and when I was using S950 everything was S950 with maybe like a synth to add some sprinkles. But the goal has always been to use them all together, and I just didn't have it set up that way.
Mm-hmm.
Should have having it set up that way. I'm like, what if I don't even use this shit? It's just easy to patch a fucking cord right here, like one cord to the other cord, and I'm done. I don't have to like dig behind the desk and all that other shit that I used to do. And what if it's that easy and I still don't do it? Like, we'll see, man. Like, I don't know. I have a lot of ideas of what to do with the S950, but I'm also old enough and experienced to know that the ideas you have in your head is not exactly what happens in reality. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to turn it on and play with it, hoping to get the shit all set up by January 1st. Ready to go with my turntable fixed and working and everything MIDI'd up. And I'm just going to dedicate January to myself, not releasing any of this shit unless it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like seeing what I can do. I feel like this is one of those moments that we spoke about where I'm kind of blowing up my process a little bit. And it usually starts with a few weeks of like shitty beats until like get over the hump and figure out some new stuff. But I don't know, man. It's gonna be fun, man. I want to like finger drum with the S950. That would be interesting. I can't even.
All right, because yeah, you can actually, so you will finger drum on your push controlling the S950, right?
It's set up to do it right now. I tested it out. I have it working, but I haven't loaded a bunch of drum samples into the S950 yet, which that alone is going to be interesting. Even if I get the same addictive drums into the S950, crunch the fuck out of it, and finger drum. Like I've never seen anyone do it. That should be fun. But who knows? It could sound like shit.
How many drums fit on one? Is it still diskette, like the floppy, or do you have the updated version?
No, it's floppy right now. I'm thinking of upgrading the drive, but I don't plan to even save anything on it, to be 100% honest. Like, I'm just going to sample on it and then put the shit back in Ableton, like, track it back into Ableton, the stems, and go from there. But I don't know, maybe that changes. The disk drive upgrade is very easy. It's very simple to do, and it's not expensive. Probably wind up doing that.
Is the source material on the S950, or do you run your addictive drums from Ableton into S950?
That's what I think. I'm going to try that first. I'm going to like sample all the addictive drums sounds from Ableton into the S950. They'll live on here, and then I'll finger drum on them while tracking that. I'll track the MIDI of the finger drumming, and then I'll track each individual drum sound into Ableton.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm just using it to color the sound. But that's the idea.
Okay.
Practice. Who knows what I want? It makes, like, I love the way bass tones sound on it. I love the way it just makes all samples sound. So I can't see myself just restricting it to drums. Just kind of why I think I want to do a whole project. Or at least, even if it's not a project to release, I want to take a month and just everything through. But I have to learn it again. That's the other thing. I learned it back then because it's all I had. And I know more now. I know more things now. So maybe I'll go into some menus. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that was there. I thought I had it mastered, but you never master anything.
Mm-hmm.
More information out there. Like I found out something that I never even, like, watching S950 videos recently, that I never knew, because on the front there's two inputs. There's a one that says mic, says line, and I always sampled into the line because that makes sense. Someone else suggested sampling into the mic input, even line stuff, and it gives it a different crunch. And I was like, what? Why do I have to just move the cable into the other fucking jack? Like, I never even considered that. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of experiment.
It makes sense, right? Because the level is different for the two inputs, and therefore, okay.
Makes perfect sense, which is why I can't believe I never even thought of it. But he said he prefers the sound going through that for everything. He doesn't even use the line input. Okay.
I love moments when someone points out something like really obvious that you're like, I had this impression that I do have a brain that it can operate to some degree, but now you just proven me wrong.
Had his for a year, and he's already done.
One little thing, like, this is the moment when I happily feel stupid about myself.
Сегодня открылась учредительная конференция.
This is the proof of, like, you can't master something. Really, like, there is always some room for improvement, and yeah, it's very important to have people in your life able to teach you stuff, to give you like a different perspective.
Happens every Thursday, at least 50.
Yeah, hang out with us, bro. It's fucking tight. Watch cartoons. We talk about music shit. We talk about life.
I'm like, oh shit, I did not think of that. Yeah, yeah. Sidechain.
Big shout out to the gang
Mad tutorials, beat.
and to Drums for making it work.
It's I don't know. I still don't understand how it works, how it's worked. So I've been part of a lot of communities, and for it to be run long and there not to have been any, hasn't been a shit show. There was one person that showed up to the Zoom with some negative energy, and he never came back, and that was it. I mean, I think we're approaching 2 years now in Sidechain. That's a long run without any bullshit, and it's steadily growing.
Wait, did you just say there was one guy with the negative energy that showed up? Ha!
That shut down very quickly. It wasn't even like no one really. I don't think anyone said anything. I think it was just kind of like everyone just kind of ignored it and he never came back. Like he like basically trashed on someone's beat or something like that. Like someone played a beat and like it just started and it was like he was talking about it. We're like, cool. And then it turned into like kind of insulting. And I don't think anyone said anything. And then it just kind of died out and he left. Never came back.
Like everybody is a beast who could like.
It's a unique space for sure, man. To have that many people in a room every week and no egos, no shit, no weirdness, just, you know, every Thursday.
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't think anything could stop it at this point. It's kind of got a life of its own. It's just steadily growing, steadily seeing new faces in there. Actually invited one of my friends to come tomorrow, so see if he comes through. So, you know, just keep this shit growing, keep it moving. And I think people who just come to the Zooms, I think just sitting there for 10 minutes and observing, they'll know very quickly if it's for them. And I don't think too many people say it's not. Once you're in, you're hooked. And
one session, I was like, okay, I'm invested now.
that's it. That's all it takes, man.
Mm-hmm.
That first shot of heroin and
yeah, exactly like you're saying it. It's like it's a heavy, like as if someone introduces the heaviest drug that makes you immediately addicted. It's like, okay.
Or neglecting your family for it. And like, sorry, it's Thursday. Oh no, that's all right. Luckily there was no sidechain on Thanksgiving. I have a meeting with other sidechain people tomorrow, which is Thursday at 4:30. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, is there any way we could like reschedule this, make it earlier or
Mm-hmm. Will this work any other time for you?
People from Sidechain, that's the thing. I'm having a little Sidechain meeting and it's getting in the way of Sidechain.
And it's like, it's a conflict of conflict in it's cozy in there. I don't know how others feel, but
I feel bad for friends of mine who are beat makers who I've told about it and they're not checking it out. I've told a bunch of people about it. They're like, yeah, oh, it sounds cool. Never show up. Not even to like, I understand having like a little hesitance to sign up to pay the monthly thing. Understand that. I'm trying to give you the gateway drug. Just come to the Zoom call. Here's the link. Stop in. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to put your camera on. Just come in and chill and listen. Like, oh man, I got to do this. No, oh, what's the link again? And they don't show up. Like, I'm good. I'm doing it for y'all. Like, this is something that's gonna benefit you. Like, it's cool. I'm not trying to force your hand, but believe me, you're gonna once you do it, you're gonna be like, I should have done this before.
You know, when you tell your friend you have the highest authority, this personal reference is like, I vouch for this. Like, I know it's the best. My homies, this WhatsApp group where we exchange beats with each other, is like, they know on Thursday, like, no, you won't hear me there on Thursday because I'm busy. I'm in Sidechain, and I throw them screenshots and I throw them like,
once in a while I'll remind them, and they don't show up again. I'm like, I can't help but talk about it. It's angelic thing, but like, all I can do is invite them after them take that step.
Gosh,
I'm glad I took, for sure.
I should have, like, I just realized, like, I missed the opportunity when he had when he made it like a free Zoom for everyone and sent it out to the whole newsletter list. I should have dropped the link into the group. Like, maybe if he does it again,
At least 3 or 4 people are full on addicted sidechainers that I brought. Trying to make it another one tomorrow. We'll see what happens, see if he shows up. It's good for us. I mean, I'm still in the house. I'm sitting in front of a computer for 12 hours. She'd be a lot pissed if I was going out for 12 hours to meet someone. So, like, you know, there's some benefits to it. She can come in and that I've been in front of the computer for too long. It is accurate. It's 12 hours is too much to be in front of a computer. What I've done, I think I've done like 14 hours of sidechain once, and I was struggling, and I tapped out. I was like, yeah, I gotta be out, and I left, and they still kept going for another 4 hours or some shit, which is, I don't know, we're all in. Yeah, that shit is crazy. How there was a period where he was like, yeah, we're gonna keep the rabbit holes to a minimum, and it didn't work.
Nope.
It's too big of a part of it. It's almost I feel like there are more rabbit holes than beats. I think
Absolutely.
have it any other way. It shouldn't be any other way. Well, we've been ending earlier, so at least he's getting sleep now.
Cryp, that was it. Yes, I covered all my questions I prepared for you.
Сейчас вот здесь вот единственный, по-моему, магазин, где есть огурцы.
No, cooking, but but that's a rabbit hole right there. So,
Yeah, you sure? We could talk about whatever. Got time. Yeah, you sure? We could talk about whatever. Got time.
as well, like, this is fun. Picking people's heads is fun.
I'm glad you're doing this shit. Who's next up, if you don't mind me asking? You.
So yeah, there will be a lot, and this is James was saying, like,
I would love for you to pick his brain about stuff like that too, man. So
I don't know. Typically, I'll keep the sample stereo and keep my kick and my bass. Have that be the mono parts. You know
how you arrange beats currently. Like, do you start with the sample and then layer? What you do there? How's the processing there?
talk about all of the above. The cooking thing, that's a pretty easy story. I stopped making music in 2006 completely, mostly because business shit. Signed a deal that didn't agree with me, which can't get into. I mean, I can get into details, but I don't want to name names and area. But I just quit music altogether for like a good 5 years. I didn't make music, and I was depressed as shit, and I couldn't figure out why I was depressed. And I figured out that it was because I had no creative outlet, and cooking became the creative outlet. And I quickly noticed the parallels between cooking and making beats. It's the same fucking thing. You have ingredients together, and it makes something new. Like it just clicked with me very quickly. Like, oh, yeah, that's exactly like mixing two samples together or whatever it is. And I love food. I've always loved food, although I grew up like a really picky eater, and I'm still pretty picky. But cooking kind of expanded my horizons with that, and it just kind of became like a habit. Like anytime I travel anywhere, I'm trying to take a cooking class and learn how they make what they make. So that's cooking, which led to the hot sauce thing, the Parada hot sauce. Making hot sauces for a while, but you know, small batches just for the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I'll have extra and I'll give it to a friend or whatever. But I had the idea for the Parada hot sauce for a good 2 years. I was like, am I going to be able to do this? Are people going to give a shit? Are people going to buy it? And the answer to all of that was yes. People bought it. I mean, I didn't sell out of it or anything, but like it was other people were like, oh yeah, cool. And I used to post a lot more on Instagram. I used to post like a lot of food that I was cooking with beats behind it and shit. But I kind of fell off. Yeah, man, I love food. I love to just turn on your stove and get some ingredients and learn the basics, and you can figure out the flavors and what your style is and shit from there. Or that's my cooking spiel.
What's
Which ones are like my favorite?
mm-hmm. Where do you talk?
Mexican food is like food is another one. That's the reason I went to Thailand, basically.
Hot stuff.
Yeah, I love spicy. Hot sauce, Thai, Mexican, or line. But I love Italian food too. I cook Italian food. I don't really discriminate. And kind of like with music, I don't discriminate with genres. Like I have records from every genre possible. And yeah, man, food is food as long as it's delicious and not too crazy. I'll experiment with some weird shit.
Probably you would discriminate, or you wouldn't like German cuisine a lot, so, because it's not impressive. I gotta tell you that.
Beer going on. I like beer. Like sausages, right?
Yeah. Well, it's quite blunt. It's you know, they are not wild on spices. They are not wild on anything. It's like, yeah, potatoes and a sausage, and that's it. They go crazy on beer. Like there are a bazillion different sorts and flavors of beer, but
I'll still have to like check it out for myself.
the cooking of beets, like where are you currently in your process? What's your?
I don't even know. Like I don't even know. Like I don't know what my process is. It's different every time. It's not where it used to be, mainly because I'm not digging as much as I used to. Because that used to kind of dictate where sample was always kind of the first thing for me in the past. That's definitely changed a lot. Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes it is a sample, sometimes it'll just be I found a sound and I want to play around with it, or I created some chords. Let's see where this goes. Or I'm finger drumming and I'm like, thank God for Ableton's capture feature, because like, you know, I said I would just do the jamming out for like an hour and I just record new and all the MIDI is there. And I'm like, okay, I can catch a 4-bar loop there and that'll be the start sometimes. And yeah, my process is it's a mixed bag. I think I go through phases. Like currently, I think my phase is more on the finger drumming side of things right now. Mainly because like I figured out some things that I've been trying to figure out for a year. I figured them out in like the last month or so, and So now that is going to be in every beat I make, which is kind of probably not a good thing, but I'll tone it down to use it when I should. But and I've been really like tweaking addictive drum sounds a lot. Like I used to just kind of use them stock, and like there are a lot of presets in there. But now I've been getting a little deeper into like bringing them out into individual tracks and kind of processing each sound differently, and kind of just I guess creating my own sound, because I think I mentioned this in Sidechain. I'm thinking of doing like a drum break kind of pack.
Mm-hmm.
All the finger drumming.
Mm-hmm.
Just a cool thing to like see from like a video perspective, and like drum break pack.
Mm-hmm.
And what I started like having the idea, and I was kind of like weird about using addictive drums because I was just using the preset sounds, but now I kind of making them my own. So that's kind of my latest venture. But to be honest, I haven't made any beats with it. I've just been kind of playing. So like I have a bunch of different ones. Like there's one I was just working on today. And yeah, that's the current process. I don't know, man. When I get my turntable back working, I'm going to go heavy on records, because right now, you can see behind me, there's 2 boxes up there. I don't know if you see the top shelf. Now you can't see them, but those are quote unquote new arrivals, records that I haven't sampled or listened to really for that yet, that I've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
So the second this turntable gets back in here, I have, probably about 100 records or so to dig into.
Do you have a bunch of like VSTs or plugins that you gravitate towards to do to this phase kindly?
You mean as far as like the drum processing stuff?
For example, like because you mentioned processing drums, like do you have?
Yeah, I've been using like it's a lot of the stuff that I found out about through drums. Like I do Slate Digital pretty much on everything. What is it? Plugin Alliance stuff. Decapitator. That thing is, I don't even understand what it's doing, to be 100% honest. But if you throw that on a snare, it's a different beast of a snare. And I found that out watching a drums live stream. He literally was tweaking it, and I was like, what the fuck did he just do to that snare? And I paused it and like zoomed in. I'm like, Decapitator, what the fuck is that? And dropped the money, and I was like, yeah, that's what it was. But like that's the beginning of it. Once I get this S950 in the works, that's going to be another aspect. Then I got the VS 1680. I'm going to track things in there and see how that sounds. I don't know. I like, once I get the patch bait thing going, the plan, I don't know if the plan's going to actually happen because of laziness or routine, but the plan is just to try all this shit. I have toys here, why not use them? I don't know. And I have other friends that are drummers and things like that. I want to like try and like incorporate everything I can. I have tape decks. I have, there's a lot of options, and I don't know. I have no idea what tomorrow is going to bring.
What will happen? That record, like the multi-track that you have, it's a digital one, right? So it doesn't record to tape, or is it? No.
And show him the doorway towards the English patient. I rhyme slow cause my English is patient.
No, it's digital. It's a hard drive. It has a hard drive in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it does have a sound to it. Because you're, I guess from the digital to audio converters or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it has effects, and those effects have a different sound to it that I miss. I used it a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to think that current Cryp could make different use or better informed choices with the stuff that's in there. And I don't know, see what happens. Like my hope is that somewhere in there I find a process that works for what I want to do, or I don't. Like I maybe I just do something different on every record, like, and don't repeat a thing, because there are so many options. Once all this shit is easily accessible, there was something that Drum said that kind of really struck a nerve. He said something to the effect of like, he's buying all this analog gear that does the stuff that he wanted the plugins to do, and it's cheaper. And that's the thing that, like, because we used to use plugins because they're convenient and cheaper, right? And now it's the other way around. Like, you can,
Crazy, eh?
yeah, it's weird. I started off on hardware, switched to mostly software, and thought that was it. Like, I'm in the world now. I have everything at my fucking fingertips. And now I'm like, do I? Is that 950? And because I have the S950 VST, whatever that is, it doesn't sound anything like this 950. I like what it does, but it doesn't sound like an S950. And nothing sounds like an S950 except an S950. And my S950 sounds different than my friend's S950. So there's something really interesting about analog gear. Well, I mean, technically, the S950 isn't even analog, which that's another discussion.
Doesn't it have like an analog filter section? Wasn't that the thing of the 950?
It does. But like, when people call it an analog piece of gear, like, I think they're confusing that with like, well, yeah, the filter is, but like, it's a digital sampler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't have tubes in it, so to speak. But I don't remember what my point was. But
Or it sounds like you want to bring some of the hardware world back into your.
I do. In my mind, I want to have the best of both worlds, where I have the sound from the analog world with the flexibility of software. But I don't know how realistic that is. Like, I know it's possible. I don't know how realistic that is for me to do that process. Like, at the end of the day, and maybe it's laziness, but I want things to be easy. I don't want to have to jump through hoops to get the sound that I want. I would rather it be easy and come close. You know what I mean? So, like, at the end of the day, I want to make music before anything. Like, I want to get first. So I say all that, all the plans, the grand plans with all this equipment and shit, all that shit might go out the window if it's too, not difficult, but if it's too time consuming and takes me off the path of actual creating. So we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, I remember there are reasons why I left the S950 behind, but there are also reasons I never sold it or got rid of it. So, we'll see where it ends up in the things. I know I love the sound of it. I miss the sound of it, and we'll see if I'm willing to deal with the shortcomings to get that sound.
I'm sure you will. Well, but again, we'll see. This is like it's a gamble at this point because, just as you said, if it's too tedious, this might be the killer.
And I also, part of it may also just be me kind of, some of it may be fantasy. Like, how you fondly remember things from your past, and as time goes on, those memories get fonder, but it's still the same thing, like, maybe I get back to it. I'm like, maybe this doesn't sound as great as maybe there was, because I listened to my old beats from that era and I love the sound I get from it. But who's to say that was just the S950? Maybe it was the mixer that I used. Maybe it was the shitty cables that I bought that were adding some weird noise. Maybe it was some, like, the keyboard I had on channel 3 and 4 and I didn't mute the channels and that hiss was leaking through. Like, analog equipment, it's if you don't know exactly what everything was, because everything adds something, then you're not going to get exactly that sound. So we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be a fun journey, or it's going to be a frustrating journey.
Nah, it sounds more like your type of blowing up the process.
Yeah.
And you don't seem to be frustrated with where you got currently with blowing it up regularly. So
that first month will be frustrating. No matter how you do it, until it becomes routine.
yeah. And I mean, you're prepared. You know that that's the process. Shitty beats, number 3. From there, 10%.
Got to make 100 beats to get 10 good beats. So I want 10 good for a release. I got to put in at least 100 beats. If I make a beat a day, it's a little over 3 months. So
it takes the pressure out of this whole situation. Like, I just know, like, yeah, well, it will be 2 to 3 months to get this. So I don't like, well, I guess I'll play shit this week for the guys, because not there yet. The last good one happened last week and we played that. So just gonna next week. I guess we'll get there next week. It's all good. I'm fine with that.
oh, as long as you prepare yourself for that, I think as a younger producer, I expected every beat to be great. And I know people who are like that. And when it's not great, they get frustrated, throw it out, and then start another one that may not be great. And that was my process for years. And I don't ever want to go back to that. I'm totally fine with making a bunch of garbage to get to the great one. And yeah, man, I urge everyone to like try and break that mindset, because everything you make is not going to be great.
And it's so stressful as well.
Incredibly stressful.
It's just like,
Producers, there's no one who doesn't think that they make a bunch of garbage. Like, okay, who it is. I guarantee you, if you could conjure up Dilla's spirit right now and talk to him, he'll tell you about all the beats that were released after he died that he wished never got released to us, but he thinks they're trash.
Or at least what I catched from Madlib's projects, when he was like, oh, I'll make 100 beats this month and release them as a body of work, it's that statement. It's not making 100 great beats, it's making 100 of them for the sake of it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That and the sample sources, like they used to stress me out, because like digging was a large part of who I was, and I'd find the quote unquote perfect sample and I'd make a beat with it, and I didn't like the beat. And I'm like, oh fuck this. I gotta keep working with the sample until I make the beat. And that shit doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Like it's better just putting that sample aside, come back to it a year later and see what you can do with it now, like, which is more my process now. I try not to like force anything. Although when you set goals for every Friday, you have to force some things. But like just as a whole, like I'm not like, I found myself trying to like fit a square peg in a round circle slot, kind of like this sample is dope. I got to make a beat with it now. And if that beat's not dope, then I suck. Like, because clearly the sample is amazing. Like I don't know. Like the sample source thing, I used to get really attached to that, and learning to like you said, not get married to that was like a big lesson for me. In that, like, you may make a shitty beat with a great sample. That doesn't mean you can't use that sample again later when you can make a better beat. But like,
do you manage to return to older beats, like open up projects and
I do it all the time. Unless I've released it. Once I've released something, that's it. I don't touch pretty much anything from that session. maybe I'll pull some drums from a session. But if it's not released, like a lot of the singles that I released this year, a lot of those were from my beat challenge thing, the 100 day. A lot of those were from there. I mean, back then they were just like 8-bar loops or 4-bar loops or something that I fleshed out and turned into like a song. But yeah, like I go back into old sessions a lot. I used to not, but as I got more organized, I'm able to do it, which that was because I used to not be organized at all. And I'm still kind of iffy with my organization, but at least my folders have, we can talk about this, but sorry to go off on another tangent.
Yeah, but that's an interesting. I actually want to know what your organizational, like, what is your system there?
I date, like, so I'll have a folder for the year, and then I'll have a folder for the month. And then
We have the same system.
usually, are you serious? You have the same system? It's a thing. And when I was doing the beat challenges, every beat was just a number. Like I didn't name anything; it's just a number. One, this is beat number 3. This is like, and it would just be like that. And in my iTunes, it's exactly like that. So when I want to find it, I'm like, okay, it's season 3, beat 42. I want to work on that one and flesh that one out. But I was able to find shit. Like back in the floppy days, I'd write whatever I felt like the name of the beat was that day, and it'd go in a drawer, and I'd probably never see it again. Like that's just.
So just years and months, and then the
Months, and sometimes like if I know it's for a specific project, I'll have like a little side folder for that project. But like that was another big breakthrough for me, was like being organized about things, because you know the artist brain generally isn't very organized, and I was not. Like I would have folders like new stuff, that would be the name of the folder, and like, you know, in 2 months it's not new anymore, so newer stuff, and like we just keep on the newest stuff, the newest anything ever again. Like that was it. It was just lost. But yeah, man, that's one thing advice I'd give to anyone who makes beats on a computer. Have some sort of system. Doesn't have to be months or years, whatever system, but make it a system where you can find something a year down the line. There's so many on my old computer up there. I have probably 1,000 beats on it, and I don't know what's on there, and I probably will never know, because who wants to dig through old Logic sessions from 7 years ago and find, like, you know, it takes 10 minutes to load the session, and then I'll play it. I'm like, oh, that's not the one I'm looking for.
Yeah, homeboy, I hardly break a sweat.
So yeah, organize your shit. Yeah.
Definitely. It's like this is why that specific question is interesting to me. It's like how people go about their library. For example, Drums mentioned that one of the videos that he has, like the bacon folder, that he has a specific texture.
I'm gonna throw some bacon in here.
He keeps textures in there.
Буквально 7 минут назад истекло контрольное время, и я обращаюсь к нашему комментатору международному.
Do you have a palette of sounds that you sprinkle in? What Tatsu mentioned, he has like sounds that he constantly uses and preuses to give.
But they're not very organized at all.
Mm-hmm.
The next step is for me to have my samples a little bit better organized, because right now it's kind of, like I said, with that new stuff and newer stuff, it's kind of like that. It's samples from whatever day. I'll have the day listed sometimes, but like it still doesn't help find it.
That's the
Yeah, like I need a system in place that helps me find stuff. My drums are pretty organized, because I've collected over the years. I don't even know how many drum hits. Like it's gigs and gigs of just drums. But I have my go-tos that I go to often. Honestly, since using Addictive Drums, I haven't been going to them much, but I kind of miss that sound, so I'm gonna go back to them. but it's just kind of organized into like kicks and snares and hats, and they're just all kind of numbered. And like after using them for a while, I'll just kind of remember some of my favorite numbers, which that's not a good system because right now I can't remember any of that shit. You know, it's because I haven't used those in like 6 months. So I need to figure out something with that. And I think Ableton has a bunch of tools to help with that that I don't use properly. So I need to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Reaching organization, I'm like realizing that I'm really not organized.
Yeah, 80% of my library is dead, is zombie library, sounds that are just...
And I can't bring myself to delete them. It's almost like my record collection, to be 100% honest. Like I'm not sampling all of these. I couldn't listen to these in my fucking lifetime. I couldn't listen to all of these records. I don't think I could do it. But I also can't bring myself to get rid of any one, because what if that day that I'm looking for that exact sound is on that record? It might be. And that's the same thing with my sound library. It's massive. And for no real good reason, I keep going back to the same bass sound every time because I know it and it's there and it's one click away. I don't have to like spend 3 hours searching for a bass sound. Like, that is my least favorite thing that I used to do gladly about production, is like listen to 400 snares until I found the right one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly for that reason. Like, this is why I don't like browsing for it, because it takes so much time. That's why Pin can make a beat in 15 minutes, is probably because he's not looking for sounds for 10 minutes. It's just whoop.
Yeah. And I've also like I get into the trying to get more into the mind state of like creating it, going back and tweaking the ones that I want to tweak. Like I did that a lot this year with like, I'll have a basic beat that I made like 5 or 6 years ago, but I never really liked the snare. I'll change the snare. And change it to one that I really like. But to me, that's more almost, it's not part of the mixing process, but it feels more like, because I already have the basis of the beat, and now I'm just searching for a snare that works better. So it's not in the creative side of it. You know, it's not me making a beat and trying to find a snare while I'm making a beat. Those days, it just takes out of the flow of it. You know, the flow of making a beat when you're just like moving and like, okay, let's go. I have ideas. Let's churn them out. I'd rather leave that to like the arrangement process or the editing process where I'm being more technical, or the mixing side of things. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm going to lean more into the Pin approach and have templates with like a set drum set. Like these are the drums that I'm using on everything for the next month or whatever it is. And then just build around it, go back and change it when I get something I like. Or maybe not.
What about your records, actually? Do you have an organizational system for your records?
It doesn't help. It helps me find a specific record, but it doesn't help any other way. Like, these are all jazz records. These are rock. These are soundtrack. This is like R&B and soul. And then I have like a couple like label things and certain producers in different ones. So they're organized. I can find a record if I know what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Used to have it a bit more organized for sampling, in that I may see some of them here. Like you see here, this has like little red. This means there's a drum break on this record. So every color, like I have yellow ones that have like a flute, or orange was horn. I don't do that shit anymore. That is extremely helpful when I'm looking for a horn, and I just pull out all the orange ones, and then I just sift through them and find the perfect horn. But it's obviously very time consuming. And
Sure sounds like.
yeah, but that used to be my thing. Like records was the biggest tool I had, and like I was always digging and always listening to records, and I didn't have responsibilities or other humans that were in my life. So you know, when you're in your 20s, you can kind of just easily, yeah, like that was nothing. Yeah, when I become a gazillionaire, I'll hire someone to like do that for me. But that wouldn't work anyway because they wouldn't have the same ear.
Characteristic. I'm eager to, like, if Karl ever agrees to have a conversation, that would be interesting. Whether he has an approach to sorting his vinyl, or like because I have no idea how his brain operates.
I just feel like he's around it so much that he just kind of catalogs it in his brain.
That's my impression as well.
Used to be of that sort, and then as I get older, my brain just ran out of space to like make new ones. So like I don't store that shit in my head anymore. Like I don't remember album covers. Like I don't even remember artists. Oh yeah, it's the one with the eagle swooping down on the cover. It's black and got an orange label. Yeah, second track on side B, the drum break. Like that's how my brain operates. But I feel like Karl, he's got a brain for that shit, and power to him.
Definitely, I think it's a matter of training as well, like exercising.
Yeah, man, I hope he speaks to you, man. That would be very interesting.
I feel very grateful for things that he does share, and he shares them in abundance. When he goes like, I want to play you samples, he plays samples eagerly. Like he just spills all the pearls and all the beans. And
amazing, man. Yeah, like I definitely, like, I was of the school, and kind of drums was also kind of instrumental in helping change my thought process. Because I used to be a DJ in the days where you literally would like cover the labels, so when people looked, they couldn't see what the song was. So I took that into my sampling. I didn't tell anyone what I sampled, even like friends. Like it was kind of like a competition between other friends that like, no, I'm not going to tell you what I sampled. If you figure it out, I'll confirm it, but like no, I'm not giving that away. And even like producing techniques, I'm like, no one taught me. Like I was like I held on to things very closely, and when I saw how open drums was about everything, like here's all the process, and I was like, why am I holding on to this shit? It's not like if I tell someone this, they're gonna be me, you know, like I think that was the initial fear, because frankly, in the beginning, we were straight looping things, you know, which the sample did a lot of the work. So if someone had your sample, so I know why my brain thought that thing, but now I'm thinking like, why is this even an issue anymore? And drums kind of broke me out of that, which brings me to this new year, me trying to show like more of my process, which I don't think it's anything too out there or different than what most people do, but I do think that it will have some value for people.
My stance on this is the samples that you take. You can show all your plugins and samples, the source material, the drum kits that you use. There is like, I'm not afraid in sharing this, because all I have, and I know that is really hard to replicate, is experience. The way that you, like, what makes your approach is those massive amounts of hours that you spend doing the things the way you do.
Yeah, no, I understand the thought process behind it, because I used to be that guy, you know. I used to be that guy, and for a reason. But now I see the errors in that judgment. So yeah, I mean, the plan is to open up to my process, but at the end of the day, also kind of a little bit of a perfectionist, even though I throw stuff out there half-assed. So like, if I do show my process, I want it to look good. I want it to sound good. I want it to, you know, so who knows if it ever happens, because I'm going to be back at that stage of like trying to perfect it until I come up with like, okay, every week I'm going to drop a tip and do one of those things, which that will probably have to happen for me to really do it. But we'll see. I don't know if I'm ready for any weekly thing for a while. I need a break. I'll figure something out. Like, you know, I really want to jump into that space. And more so because I think it'll be helpful to people. I think it'll be something cool that I would hope that, like, you know, I know that there are people who look up to me in some form of fashion. I know that if people I looked up to made videos like that, I'd be all on board, and I'd want to see that. So yeah, man, I just want to give back to the game. A lot of the ways that drums has given me, like, it's weird to say it because I've been making beats a lot longer than drums, but he gives me so much, you know. So it's like, why would I not want to give that to other people, you know? So in whatever way I could. So we'll see how it happens. That's the tough part, is figuring out the actual process and then executing it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how you obviously know all the tricks of how to make it happen fast, and yeah, it's this conflicting part of the human nature that I enjoy witnessing. But you could push out like 100 videos in 100 days or a video in a week, and yet you are you're not going down that path. You went to take your time, and you went to figure it out and do something better.
It's probably a mistake, because one of the things that I've learned through the marketing stuff, and even through diving through drums old stuff, is that the best way to get better at something is to do it. And you know, just sitting there and creating ideas and having ideas and planning and adjusting things here and there, when you could just be doing it and adjusting things. It's like your website, right? So like, you've been working on it for however long, and it's not out. It's not helping anyone. If you would have released the first version a year ago when you started it, you wouldn't have been happy with it, but you could have improved it. And case in point, I scrolled down one day, thank the weed for this, I was really high, and I scrolled back to Drum's first live stream. And when you look at that, he has an MPC in his kitchen and he's holding his phone, and you look at that, where he started to where he is now, he was never gonna, I'm thinking in my brain that I'm gonna start where he is now. Like, no, you have to start in the kitchen holding the iPhone. And because he started that and kept doing it and kept improving it every however often he improved it, that's how we got to where he is. So at some point, I have to get into my head that, like, it's not going to be, the first one's not going to be perfect. It just has to get done. So I just need to get that out of my head and do it and keep improving it over time. And I know this, but I have to go through the process of thinking it's going to be perfect first. Yeah. Done is better than perfect. That
Every time, every single time. there is perfecting, but there is no perfect. Like there is working on things, but it's like, yeah, this is done. It always seems like a misconception or something that people like this bias of like, oh yeah, if you look like at Dre's album, this and that, like this is a perfect piece of work. Well, it's what you take from it. It's like how you would like to see it. Ask Dre about that album the day before the release. I'm sure he was stressed.
Yep. I'm sure he can't even listen to it.
Yes, exactly.
You can listen to things they did 20 years ago and not pick out everything that they would do better.
Mm-hmm.
Means you didn't get better in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to accept where you are, show the world that, and keep showing them that you improve. Like that's easier said than done because, you know, egos get in the way. But that's life, you know.
Yeah, shout out to the cooking question. I didn't. I'm so glad I didn't miss it out.
A lot of tangents. Hopefully you got some gems in there somewhere.
Everywhere.
Good, man. I feel like I've talked about things that I've never talked about before, so that feels good.
Thank you for sharing that.
You set it up, whether intentional or not, you set it up for me to go places that I'm interested to talk about, and I don't feel like I've ever said in another interview before. So there's that.
There is the season of Tales from the Cryp. That is our season of Tales from the Cryp. I need to pull up that intro and make that thing happen, and then we'll have we'll do that. Thank you so much, Cryp. It's been a huge pleasure talking to you, and yeah, thanks for sharing all this.
Of course, man. Anytime.
And Sidechain Gang, all day, every day.
And then, peace, man.
Peace out.